Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the StudioMEcast. I am your host, and today we have a special guest once again, and this is Abby Möller. She is a union costumer, and so she's worked on films and shows, and plenty of them I'm sure you've heard about already, and we're going to get straight into that. So, Abby, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, we were talking before about how you worked on The Pale Blue Eye as the background costumer for that.
Yeah.
And I saw some of the photos you had posted of that with the West Point people in there and stuff, and it looked like a really cool project to be involved with.
It was amazing. I mean, working in Pittsburgh is really great because it's a small community when you think about it in relation to LA or New York. And so, but we very rarely get things that are period pieces because a lot of them get shot where you can actually have buildings that are still around. You know, like a lot of that's done in England and in Europe. So when they told us that the Pale Blue Eye was coming to Pittsburgh, we were like, wow, 1830s, like that's awesome. You're talking like, from a costume perspective, you're talking like corsets, coattails. Like it's just like everything is just very much like what I studied, and so it was like very exciting. And and we worked with an advisor from West Point who was there.
Oh, wow.
And we had an extensive, so we had like nearly like 100 cadets. Okay, so we had like all of these young boys in like their from like 18 to 22 who had all had like mainly never been background before, so they had never done acting work. And they definitely didn't know how to march or use use muskets or anything like that.
Did they have to go through training for that?
So we had like this really awesome extensive boot camp that we did with them. And so they all would get fitted for their costumes with us. We did tons of alterations. I mean, it's not just me. Like I did fittings with my good friend and fellow costumer, Lindsay Wattenbaugh. And we fit so many cadets and made everything perfect. And we had a whole team of tailors that just like really brought it all to life and made it very like fitted for them. And then all the boys would come and we'd get them all dressed. And I mean, we're talking like suspenders and front, like their pants all have buttons up the side. So just things they're not used to doing, and like stirrups and things that would go under their boots. So, like, they needed a lot of help getting dressed in general. So it was, like, teaching them how to do that and then help each other. And then we had these advisors from West Point who were there that taught them how to march, how to hold things, how to salute, how to do, like, it was really cool because they got a really, immersive experience.
Were you there for the boot camp training stuff?
Yeah.
Was that, like, I guess I'm wondering, was the drill sergeant or whoever was from who was teaching them all this stuff, was it like boot camp like you hear about where they like, all right, let's go, like just getting in their face, or was it a bit more like, all right, everybody, so today
it was a little bit, it was a little bit more playful. I mean, we're not actually getting them ready to go to war,
right?
So there's like, it's a little bit different, but yeah, they definitely had presence and were very clear and straightforward and would yell, but not in like an aggressive way. It was like just like, everybody can hear me, right?
That's
like,
great.
Let's go. Yeah.
That's so cool that, because a lot of the story takes place at West Point, and you had a West Point advisor, which is, I mean, there's plenty of films that wouldn't bother to do that.
No,
that really shows attention, like a care.
Oh yeah.
For the subject matter. That's wild.
The director, Scott Cooper, he was just something else. Like, he had a huge attention to detail. He very much respected all of the department heads. So, like, he gave our costume designer the bandwidth to do what she knew was correct for the time period, which meant that our jobs were more important as set people, because mainly what we do as set costumers is we manage continuity, because you don't shoot a movie in order. So it's making sure that when it's all cut together, everything's in its right place and everyone looks good. And when it comes to period pieces, like, you have a bunch of fancy ties that you have to do. You have like a lot of different accoutrements that people are wearing that you have to pay attention to. So him, the director, being so respectful of all the different, I mean, the art department was insane. I mean, he was respectful of everybody needing their time to make it right. And that's not always the experience that you have, you know? So it's like, that was really, really unique. It felt like I was important, you know, and across the board, a lot of people felt that way. So it was a very positive experience.
That's great, because it's so often, you know, time is money, and it's like, where are you going to cut it? And sometimes it's in those periods of time that you're talking about right now that are so valuable, because even just having a historical wardrobe for people who aren't, whether they're used to it or not, it's so easy for something to go wrong with it while filming, or as they're just walking over there, for suddenly they do something to it and now it's not accurate anymore.
Yeah, or like it breaks, you know, like a lot of things that we use are obviously rentals. We rented a lot of things from Italy. We rented things from the UK. And so like they've gone through stage shows and many other movies and television series, you know, and so they're not always in the best condition.
Yeah,
when we
it's
get
like
them.
It might be about to break already, but then it does when you need it to work.
Yeah. And we did have a lot of things that were built, so a lot of the main characters had costumes that were made for them by a tailor and cutter in New York. So it wasn't as bad in that way. And we had all the cadet uniforms made as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Like from, wow.
Yeah, from designs that our designer Kasha sent.
Were those constructed by the people like who normally do that for West Point, or by the wardrobe department?
They are from what I understand, they just but they build costumes for film.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive, because I actually have the overcoats that the characters wear sometimes. I have like 2 of those from a family friend who passed, and like for some reason there's been a few people who have been like, oh, this relative of mine was in the military and you do film, so I'll give his stuff to you. And I'm like, well, are you sure? You know, like this is kind of something I feel like I would keep. You know?
Yeah, exactly. This has like relevance, right?
Yeah, but it's so I have like 2 of those coats, and I used them for a project way back when. So when I saw them, I was like, oh my gosh, those are. But you could have fooled me. I thought those were just from where they always get all of them. They look great.
Yeah, no, I mean they look pristine.
Yeah,
and that is also another thing about building for movies, is that like there's just natural age that happens to costumes, like just being in the sun or collecting dust or whatever, that like just material deteriorates over time. So it's like having it fresh makes it more realistic to watch, because they would have just been made for them. You know, they would be brand new.
Yeah.
And so that's just like, it's an interesting to look at, you know?
Absolutely. Now, you've also worked with some stars, like you did background work for this, but you're also you've worked with Jeremy Renner and all that. Can you tell us a bit about like what's the experience of working with star power in wardrobe?
Well, I guess I first would like to explain a little bit about what being a personal costumer is.
All right.
And so, like I said before, being a set costumer is very much about continuity. But then when you come into, and that stands when you're working with principals too. And so, but then when you're only about watching like number 1 or 1 through 3 or 1 through in cast list numbers, you know, and you're talking about like the people that are appearing the most on screen for the show, there's a lot more to pay attention to, because they're getting really like macro shots, micro shots, like, you know, it's like everything matters, like, you know, just like they're like sleeve lengths, how much of your shirt is peeking out of your suit when they want to go in and do inserts of, you know, someone writing. It's like every little detail, like you take it in a different way. And then with, you know, working with celebrities or, you know, big star power, it comes down to building a relationship. and just you and that person feeling comfortable, understanding that each other is there for a job, and that I'm going to be in your personal space sometimes, and understanding where there are boundaries in that. So like if you're having an emotional scene and you really are just going through your lines, getting into this really dark headspace, I'm going to take that as, I don't need to do looks right now. I don't need to go in.
Right.
This person's in their way unless something really bad is happening. It's like, it's like to whatever. And then, and so it's building that relationship of comfortability, and like respect. It's just a mutual respect. It's like sometimes I'm going to have to be there and you're not really going to like it, but like, we're cool, right? I'll be in and out, I promise, like that kind of thing. It's like, yeah. And then there's also like a comfort level that comes to it too, because, it's like if you're in a suit all day and it's super hot outside, like you're going to want to be taking that suit jacket off, like in between scenes. So it's being able to like just be there and hold that and be ready. Make sure things don't get like wrinkled because they're like, thrown in a pile somewhere. Or like if your shoes are uncomfortable, like having a comfort shoe you can wear when we're out of the wide shot, like that kind of stuff. There's a lot of little nuance, and certain people just, like to have certain amenities in that way because they have to be on, all day from the moment they get there. So, and like I feel like I need to be on, but I don't have to be on in that same way. Just like being in front of the camera and performing. So that's where the mutual respect comes from. It's like, we're just both trying to get through the day and make it as good as possible so we don't have to reshoot it.
Right. And I'm sure that anyone with a good head on their shoulders appreciates like all the apparatus that goes into that too.
Oh, yeah. I've worked with a lot of people, like even on the Pale Blue Eye. It was like I worked a couple days as a principal costumer to help out, and like the ladies are in corsets and they're tight, it's like it's uncomfortable to be corseted, and so just like being able to like loosen it a little bit and undo their skirts and carry them around for them, just like let them feel like they can breathe and relax for a minute, and then being ready as soon as that camera's up on on the stilts wherever it's going, we're lacing you back in and getting you ready to shoot. And it's like we don't even have to talk. I'll just come up to you and make a little gesture, and you'll be like, please, and then we go, and then I'm like, all right, I'm back, fixing you up, all right, you ready to go. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And also back to Pale Blue Eye for just a second. Some of that was shot, it looked like, at McConnell's Mills. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, sure was.
I was just there a little bit ago.
Yeah.
And just the paths there are great to walk on.
Oh my gosh, it's wonderful.
Cool.
That's another thing about working in film in Pittsburgh that's really unique, and in my opinion, one of my favorite things about it is that we are so frequently on location because they come here for the tax credit, but also because of the look. And so in, bigger cities, they'll have much larger stage presence. Some shows are completely shot on stage. And I think that would bore me to tears.
Yeah, there's definitely something I find exciting about being like just on a set. But yeah, location is
it's you wake up, you go to a different place, sometimes 3 or 4 different places a week, and you just like are in a new environment, like and it's like it's exciting, and you get to see like all the different art forms like come into play. Like, what did set dressing do in here? This is insane. I've been in this bar, it never looked this nice. And you just kind of have like a huge appreciation for all the different arts that are going into it.
Now, my viewpoint is like with film has been pretty much always, even if it's being sometimes a rough experience, like I'm still lucky to be doing film. It's
oh yeah.
But that being said, what are some things that can be frustrating about the work that you do?
Ooh. Well, there's scheduling. There, because we shoot on location, there are a lot of times where the weather gets the better of us and we have to change route and go to a different set of scenes at the stage or somewhere that's inside. And that kind of pivot can be hard because we get a one-liner, we have an expectation of what's happening that week. We have a truck costumer who makes sure that the things that we need for the next day are on the truck, because a lot of stuff is split between being on our truck and being at the office. And so that can be really difficult because it's like, oh, we didn't fit that person for that scene yet, or they haven't even been in town. So we have to do a fitting in the morning. And so then, 5 or 6 garment bags filled to the brim with options show up on the truck in the morning, and we have to get them all ready and get them into the trailer so that the designer can come and have a fitting and decide what they're going to wear. And it just, it could make what was going to be a really simple day into a 3-hour pre-call. And just moving a mile a minute before we get to set, and then everything calms down because you can only shoot so quickly.
Right. And now for that kind of thing, what's the latest notice you can get on that?
There's not really a limit.
Is it, and how is it communicated? Is it you get a text or a call? Is it from the AD? How's that work?
Most of that stuff comes from the first AD anyway, because he is, or he or she is constantly working on the schedule, and is, it's their responsibility to make sure we have something to shoot if we do have, weather coming in, or we lose a location or something. There's a lot there, there's a lot of little things that can happen. But yeah, then the second will disseminate that to department heads. Sometimes we find out on the day while we're all on set, and then we communicate it back to our people. But that's, but we don't like when that happens.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, but not having the time.
Yeah, it's just the time. It's, and it happens a lot more in television, just because it's just so much more to shoot. If you're shooting 8-hour-long episodes and you've got 6 months of shooting, then it's that's a lot when you consider an hour and a half of a movie could be 4 months.
Yeah.
It's just a lot more content. It can be a lot more locations, a lot more minutia that they have to get to fill out those, 52 minutes or whatever it comes out to be at the end.
So when you're doing the types of projects you've been involved with, do you find that there's something you particularly, a genre you particularly specialize in, or that you've had the most opportunity for?
Yeah. I've predominantly done period pieces, and that's, obviously the 1830s is a bit of an extreme, but I've done a lot of 70s work, some 90s stuff. So I think my, first big break in period piece was working on Mindhunter season 2. And that was a wild ride because it was working with David Fincher, who's very particular and very talented and knows the ins and outs of everything, which is amazing, but it's, it's a lot of pressure. And
when you say he knows, because I've heard people say that about him a lot, detail-oriented, knows everything, knows the ins and outs of it. Can you tell me,
I mean, I could give you some examples.
Yeah, give me some examples of, what...
We were on set one day, and I don't really know light boards. Okay, so, just bear with me. But he's outside, he's, at Video Village, and they're setting it up, and he's this light is at 1,000 or something. I don't remember. And the guy was like, no, it's not. It's at this. And David was like, yes, yeah, it is. And he goes over and he's like, oh, it is. And it was down to understanding how bright the light was. I was just like, how do you know this? It was insane. And for
I can't believe the guy told him he was wrong.
Well,
too.
Yeah, tensions get high when you're, on set, and there's a certain way that, you know, people talk to each other, and you're kind of like, oh, whatever, that was last, you know, that was yesterday, and it was just stressful, and you kind of get over it. But in my department, like, it was crazy. Our designer, Jen Starzik, is like a hero. I love her. But I did some fittings, also with Lindsay Wattenbaugh, and she was teaching me like what was expected of the fittings and the fitting photos. And so we'd give, you know, so many looks for each person, and every picture had to be like, everything looked pristine, like everything was pinned, like the pants looked very straight, everything was tight and perfect. And then David would look through those photos. Never have I ever heard of a director going through background photos and deciding which look for each person he liked the best.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. Like that's, I mean, you're talking thousands of photos over like the season. I think it was like, we ended up having like 15,000 or something extras by the end of it. It was like wild. But anyway, it was like that kind of level of detail is like, he knows everything that's showing up on set that day, down to what the people are wearing that are going to be in the background. And like, so that's what I mean by ins and outs, all the things. Like, and on Tech Scouts, he would like whittle down the call sheet. He'd be like, why do we need this many trucks? Why do we need this?
A director going through all the extra stuff, I haven't been in a position where I'd be able to go through all that, right? In my idealistic mind I'm like, oh, that's what I want to do. But I also know like that just takes time. And
yeah, but when you have time and you have money,
right,
that means that you can have control over all of those things to really make like a pristine product. Yeah. And have you watched Mindhunter?
Yeah, I have.
It's a pristine product.
Yeah.
It is a pristine product.
It's the story. It's funny though, because I know like a lot of people who have worked on it. Mm-hmm. And
I mean, we employed basically all of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, basically. Like, and I guess I just kind of missed the boat on that. I didn't like apply to be a PA or anything, and I'm like, maybe I should have done that. But yeah, it's I knew a lot of people. No, I do know a lot of people who've worked on it, and now you as well. Yeah. So, but it's especially. I know the one actor, Jack, who plays the guy with the bird.
Oh, Jack Erdy?
Yeah, and I'd say I know him, but we are acquaintances. I haven't had the pleasure of working with him yet.
I produced a short that he starred in and called Nebby, and he's...
Wait, is that the one? Is that the Vinegar Hill one?
Solano Pictures, but yeah.
With Andrew Calvetti.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I love Andrew.
I know him.
He's a sweetheart.
Yeah, he's great.
No, Jack's a force of nature. I love him. I love watching him. He's also just a very dear person. I like him a lot. I think I met him and I found out he was on Mindhunter, and I watched it. I was like, this guy's awesome. I know.
Like, you know, and
this
then
guy is
seeing
an
him
actor.
And
I know.
like he's just like. The first time I met him, he's just, a very gentle, polite man, and then seeing him in that, it's just one of those, it's the magic trick that I enjoy of seeing an actor doing their thing. I'm like, they're not like that, really,
Yeah. He's not really a serial killer.
No, he's, as far as we know. But, he's...
That's true, Jack.
Yeah, he could get away with it, I'm sure. But there's, so fantastic. So, Mindhunter, Pale Blue Eye. With all this, are you normally working with a lot of the same people? Are you, like...
In my team?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, predominantly our designers are from out of town, and so we'll have design team come from out of town with an assistant costume designer, and then sometimes an out-of-town supervisor, and then everybody else is, we work very intimately together on show to show, so our relationship with each other is really important, because you're spending, 14 to 16 hours a day with these people, and you're depending on them, so that, we're all doing your job well, and you're doing it to the best of your ability. And like, if you're having an off day, someone else can come in and pick up the slack, because it happens inevitably, So yeah, I'm very fortunate to say that I have a lot of friends in this department.
That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, because sometimes with union stuff, I don't always know if it's like it's all different people every time, or if you're like with a group.
I feel like that's more
usually.
Commercials, but I don't do very many commercials.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really cool that you got to have the experience with David Fincher as well, and like someone who cares that much. Like on the one hand, I imagine they give you more, like I don't want to say like they're probably more difficult. Like they probably give you more stuff to do, or maybe more notes.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that they're more difficult, but that also means that like your caliber of work has to is being measured.
It's like that's what like you want. Is to be part of something that's really good. You know?
And also like sometimes you can get a little lazy and you can't on that kind of in that kind of situation. Like you really know that every day what you put forth matters and is gonna be watched.
Wow. Like
on set, or not necessarily in the aftermath, but on set it's like you have to be on best behavior, and honestly it makes you better at your job. And like it galvanized me completely. I worked on that show for a year. Almost an entire year, and I learned so much and worked with very talented people that I learned so much from, and it was hard, but I wouldn't trade it in for an easier job by any means.
Absolutely.
Because it gave me a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I bet. That's because even you and I worked together on a short, and one of the things that was wild for me on that one was I didn't get to see you like pretty much all day.
Oh, right.
And normally I would want to like not because I think other people can't do their job, but I like being involved with things on different steps of it, but it was just there wasn't time.
Also, there wasn't normally there's an approval process, and as you get people dressed, you send pictures out to get approved by the director, and there's a whole thing.
And it's different for the 48-hour film project.
We had no time for those. It
was amazing how every single person who showed up looked amazing. Oh,
well, that was not just me, but it was so many people showed up with amazing options, which in a 48 situation is like ideal. Like I was up all night making those shields and like random stuff that I was like, we just need things in bulk, and pulled some accessories and stuff together, but mostly it was like everybody came with things for me to style at that point. So then it's more of like a styling. But there's also the working with people, because I heard stories about what people's experience with you was like. Aww.
Where it
must be positive.
Well, yeah, it was. Like people would show up and you'd be like, okay, you're a wizard, or something. Like you could pick them out for what they were, what their role would be. And every time someone showed up, we were like, oh my gosh, Mark, you look perfect. It's so even then though you're still, even though it's fast and it's like not the way that we're, I guess, ideally gonna work and all that, you were still able to use your experience and intuition to help find the characters, so that like the second anybody sees like any of the people, like everything you really need to know about them in order for their character to work. Yeah. Which is so, I mean, that's valuable in film in general, but for a short with a big ensemble, it's really a big help for that, It's
and that's why I wanted to do it in the first place. When I was talking to Marianne and she was like, yeah, I'm gonna work on this 48, they're like definitely doing a musical. I was like, what? That's wild that you're taking that on. And I was like, yeah, I don't normally work on 48s except to help out here and there, but like I could do this. Like I could actually get into something that's that like brave. Like that takes a lot of maybe it's just insanity, but takes a lot of bravery to want to take on such a big undertaking. God only knows what our prompts could have been. You know what I mean? Yep. We could have we could have gotten something that I would have been completely useless in helping with. We could have done some modern day piece where I would have just been changing up people's clothes that they brought in a modern
Right.
sense, and it would have been boring AF, but we got to do something that was fantastical,
Yeah.
and I was really excited about that.
There's
Because it made me proud.
I'm awesome. You also won the award as well for
Yeah.
best wardrobe, so very
No.
well deserved.
Yeah, I
very
mean,
happy about that.
again, it was like we had a huge ensemble. We
Yeah.
decided to do like a fantasy LARP, so it was like at a certain point it was like, does anyone else stand a chance? Like, you know, I don't mean that in a rude way. It's just like it's what's
There's-
presented to you, you know.
Yeah, there's different projects that showcase different aspects of cinema. Not every movie has martial arts in it
Right.
either, so
Oh, we
it's
love
like
the ones that do.
oh, absolutely. And wardrobe is a big important thing for that
Mm-hmm.
as well, like making sure that if these people are moving fast, you can tell who's who, and like making even having their wardrobe contrast to the background so you can see what they're doing.
I mean, that's a huge thing. It's like every day that we're dressing background, if it's not pre-fitted, it's like, all right, let's find out what color the principals are wearing because they're all going to be in the same scene and they can't both be in purple blouses.
Right.
You know, like that kind of stuff. Because, you know, that is important that you don't have, because otherwise they'll blend in or stand out too much. It's just,
It's sort of
delicate
even though,
balance.
yeah, even though this isn't a wardrobe thing, it's like having lightsabers be different colors.
Yeah,
You know,
totally.
it's like so that you can tell who's doing what. You know.
Yeah.
And so that's there's maybe one or two lightsaber fights where it's like they both have blue or something, but it's pretty rare.
Yeah,
and
not
still
for me.
means something. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, there's always
Yeah.
something to be meant in those.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. So, now we've gone a bit over what can be frustrating, you know, or what can go wrong, I guess, and a lot of other things like that. But when things are going well,
Mm-hmm.
and you're doing, by well I don't mean you're relaxing. Even it's
Sure,
like
sure.
you're doing. When all the wheels are turning at
You're
the
doing the
right,
thing.
you know, you're doing the thing.
Mm-hmm.
As a wardrobe person, what does that feel like?
Oh, it's exhilarating when things are all going well, especially when it's like, I worked on I Am Not Okay With This, which is on Netflix, and we had this, like, head explosion scene. Yeah, sorry if you haven't seen it. And it was during a homecoming prom of sorts, like big dance, and so we had tons of teenagers in nice outfits, and then we're gonna do this huge blood gag, and they're all gonna get sprayed with blood, and like, so like, me and my set partner, Lindsay, were trying to like make this blood that would look like shiny but also like looked like it had like bits of brain in it and stuff, and we like settled on this like hair gel blood mix that we were doing and like slapping on everybody, and it looked so good, and like there was just blood everywhere, and it was a long night because, you know, it just, that kind of stuff takes a lot of time. And we were like on cloud nine. It was like, man, this was really stressful, getting all these like multiples together and ready, and, you know, making everyone look like bloody, but the right kind of bloody and the right directionality of the blood. I love blood work. It's my favorite. Because I feel like there's so much nuance to it, like color, placement, all this stuff.
And that has a big effect on wardrobe, because if you're going to do multiple takes, or if you're shooting out of order, sometimes you need to have multiple sets of the same thing.
Yeah, or like progression, you know, as things get worse, which is a lot of distressing. You know, like if you watch Die Hard, he's wearing the same tank top the whole time, but I'm sure there were like 70 tank tops in like all the different versions of how dirty he was. And if you ever watch it again and you pay attention to that, it like becomes like dark brown all over by the end, and it just like doesn't make sense, but you're watching it. It's a fantastic movie. It's one of my favorites, and like you just accept it. But I was like, oh my god, okay, well, that's a little OTT. But yeah, so like progressions of things is interesting. It's like I actually did that in Mayor of Kingstown this last season. One of the episodes is like the Jeremy Renner's character goes on like a one day like bender basically, where he's just like drinking and kind of becoming more disheveled as the day goes on. And so it was like, well, after this point, your like suit's a little dirty. After this point, you've lost your tie. After this point, you have a couple more buttons undone. After this point, your shirt's untied, like or untucked, and like so there's like a lot of different things. And as we were shooting the episode, like we're having to flip flop back and forth all the time between.
Do you just keep that in your head, or do you have like a sheet with like a diagram of a shirt on it?
Keep it in my head. That's hilarious. No, we have a program called Sync on Set, and so we upload continuity photos every day for every scene that we shoot. And then I also watch monitor on my iPad, so I can take screenshots to keep continuity. So if, in a week we go back to something we're shooting today, I can go back and look at those exact photos of what we shot, look at my continuity photos on Sync on Set and my notes, because we'll take notes. It's called scene notes, so every scene will have a different section of like shirts tucked, ties done, this button's unbuttoned, jacket's open, all the stuff, so that if I were to like catch COVID, which was a big thing, for the last few years, or not be able to come into work, someone else could look at my notes and be able to cover my spot.
Nice.
It's like the opposit of job security. But it helps. That's the only way we can keep everything straight in our heads, because it would be a wild ride if I tried to keep all of that in my head.
Yeah.
Wild ride.
Yeah. That's cool to get like that insight as well with like the different programs you use. And everything.
No, Sync on Set really revolutionized things for us in that and monitor, because like when I started, we still had paper continuity books, and so you would have to print out the picture that you took off of your digital camera and put it in the book, and then write out your notes, and they would set up like 2 monitors for all of the vanities, which I hate that term, hair, makeup, and wardrobe, to watch, to maintain.
Why do you hate that term?
Oh, I just don't think it gives the respect to what we do. Like,
because vain is like a bad thing.
Well, I just think it kind of like lumps us all into a category, and we all do very specific and important like things. So it's like calling all the electricians and grips and camera people, something. Then you're just like, yeah, like those lot, like that group of people.
So it's not even so much that it's the word vanity, so much as just like when you're lumped in.
Yeah, it's just exactly, because we all operate pretty independently of each other. Yeah. So it's like, we all are our own departments.
Is there someone who coordinates between those departments?
The department heads.
Yeah.
So like the head makeup artist and the head hair artist and the costume designer will have conversations if they need to.
I guess that would also be the director's job too.
Yeah, and the director approves things together. So so
awesome.
Yeah.
Now, that's interesting. I haven't heard someone have that particular gripe before.
I also don't like the term wardrobe.
But it's in Narnia. What are you talking about?
I know. It's a place you put your clothes, but a costumer is the job. I don't know. It's a stupid thing. And like for me, I'm like, you're creating a costume, like as soon as the actor puts it on, like they feel like they're that character, and so like costume has like so much more power to it, I feel. But I don't know, it's just my opinion. Wait, before I went off about vanities, did I answer the question beforehand?
What were we talking about? It's been flowing and the river's gone.
I know.
I think we had asked, I'm not sure I even really had a question at that point. I had asked you, what does it feel like when everything is going well, and we went off of blood and wardrobe and fights and lightsabers, and then
it was about Sync on Set revolutionizing.
Oh yes,
and also the monitors, because when they'd put out 2 monitors, and that's all we could do was watch them. Like we could just like watch them. We'd take like weird, shitty pictures on our digital cameras of like things, but like now having that and being able to take screenshots and having high resolution pictures means that we can just do our jobs better. But yes, sorry.
No, that's great.
Final thought.
Well, no, that's cool because there was one time I was visiting this guy who was one of the producers on the original show, The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Okay.
And he had this board that opened up that he had taken from this, like, his days doing that. And it was basically Excel, but in real life, you know, and it was, each thing was like its own thin sliver of paper. It looked almost like a weird kind of bamboo mat or something, or straw mat. It was nuts. And like, it was one of those things where he opened it and it just like sensory overload. I'm like, what? And I'm like, how do you use this?
Yeah.
And it was all like scene orders and shot list. It was like 5 different things. Yeah, like I couldn't even tell you how to use it, but like what he had was from a particular episode or scene or something. And you know, it's interesting to see how like the behind the scenes of how movies are made has changed with technology over time.
Yeah.
Whether you're just taking pictures of the monitor, you know, or it's like, oh, well, what'd they do even before that, you know? And sometimes, because even if your character, it doesn't have more than one look, really, or like more than one set of clothes, even then, there's still going to be stuff that can change, like the dirt or the blood, or like you said, John McClane in Die Hard, exactly, you already said it. So,
you know, just like how tucked in your shirt is, how many buttons are. I mean, like, there's so many weird things that you don't think about when you dress yourself that change throughout the day.
Yeah, I'm working on my first feature right now, and I shot.
Good for you.
Thank you. It's but I bring it up because almost everybody in it doesn't change their clothes. Like it takes place over like a very short period of time, you know, and there's not really a point where anybody could change, you know. But part of the writing of it was that, because I was like, all right, well, we're going to have the tightest budget I'm ever going to work with, and hopefully, and it was like, we're like, okay, well, 1 costume is more affordable than 2, so let's have everybody just have 1. And there's a couple people like have a different look, but it's almost everybody's has the same through the whole thing. But even then, we had to or should have paid attention to certain things with it.
Well, you notice it when you're cutting it together.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's rough. I mean, you watch things and you notice continuity errors, even if it's just the tie flapping in the wind, like weird certain things, and you're like, oof.
I think the worst thing that happened was one of the actors at some point like accidentally brought their bracelets home with them and then showed up to set without them.
That
and
happens
I was like,
all the time.
Yeah, it's like, well, we won't point the camera at your wrist then. You know? So let's see what we can do. But
I worked on a Lifetime movie that took place all in one day, or in, you know, a couple hours really, and we had so many multiples for like certain things. We like built the main character's dress, so we had to make multiples of that, and like just so that we could get laundered, you know, things laundered for the next day.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because like, I mean, if you're in something for 12 hours, likeliness is it's gonna smell weird. So, like, it was, like, having to send out laundry if it had to get dry cleaned, God forbid, you know, like, losing it and then getting it back, that kind of stuff.
Now, do costumers have special, I guess, facilities for that, or can you just go to the local dry cleaner or the
we send out our
laundromat?
laundry. We send out the dry cleaning, and then we have a washer-dryer on the truck.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
We have a big truck. It's like 54-foot truck that's, just has bays and bays of racks on the side, so we hang all of the characters in order, and then we have a washer dryer and some desks in the front. Does
anybody on like a longer shoot ever come by and just be like, hey, look, can I just throw my change of clothes in here real quick, and they do their own laundry on the truck? No.
that not so much. We do get a lot of, it's cold outside and I didn't bring a jacket, can I have a jacket? Or it's raining and I need 6 raincoats, and maybe do you have boots or something? And then like, or like, it's really cold and I need a dive coat. Like, we get a lot of that, which is like, you know, unless we have like 12 principals that day who all need those things, like, we're really accommodating. It's like, yeah, of course, just bring it back to me at the end of the day. Like, I get it, you know.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So now we've talked about some of your past work. Is there anything that you're working on right now or that you have coming up that you'd like to talk about?
Well, we're in a writer's strike.
Yes.
So my costuming job, as it were, is kind of on hold right now until, you know, the writers get what they want, which is I'm in full solidarity of. But I'm producing a short with Steve Trisselli and who is Solano Pictures, who I did Nebby with. And and so we're working on that right now. It's called The Right Hook, and it's about a girl coming into herself with some, you know, hardship in her family and hardship at school, and how it's just really difficult to be a teenager, and how certain things that happen to a lot of girls that age, and so it's a relatable story about a girl coming into herself,
So it's
having identity.
And I should have said this properly before, but along with being a union costumer, you are an indie producer.
Yes.
And so is this is this your first short, or have you been doing that for a while? How's that go?
Nebby was my first. This will be my second, so I'm just getting started. But you know, going into costumes was something that I was really passionate about and excited by, and then I started working in it. It's not that I'm not now, but I also see that there's so many other facets to film production that I have a knack for, and I'm very good at putting puzzle pieces together and rallying troops and coming up with unique like solutions. So I was like, I really want to try producing. I feel like that's wearing enough hats to keep me satiated, like, and excited. And and I was very grateful that Steve brought me on to Nebby, because I got to learn a lot, and I'm hoping to learn even more in this one. And, you know, I constantly gathering information from working on big stuff, so it's like just kind of getting to utilize it in a smaller way for right now. But yeah.
Are there any roles in film production that you haven't fulfilled yet that you'd be interested to try?
I don't think so. I mean, I am kind of a Jill of all trades, so I do construction in my personal life, I do hair in my personal life, I am also a tailor, so I do that in my personal life. And I have a lot of, like, you know, I also like to interior design. So it's like I do a lot of different things that are kind of like facets of different jobs that you can have in film. And I get fulfillment from that outside, and, you know, outside of work. So it was really just kind of, what's like an existential thing that I do that I could get paid for? And it's like, I'm so good at trip planning and you know, and throwing a good party and like getting all the pieces together, that I was like, I feel like producing could be an in for me to be able to take all of these things that I know and all of these things that I'm good at and challenge myself and turn it into the next step in my career, basically.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, because it's, I think, really easy for people to get so absorbed into film that they maybe lose sight of being able to gain fulfillment outside of the industry sometimes.
Well, it's hard when it takes up so much of your life.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And that's another thing about living in Pittsburgh, is like, it's an affordable city. So I don't have to work all year. I can still have a couple months off every year and, you know, live my life and do my thing and have autonomy and not have to say yes to every job. And like, so that kind of feeling,
that's gotta give so much, like, just a sense of freedom, even, like,
just any sense of just not feeling like owned by the industry, because I know that's a big thing. It's just that incessant feeling of like needing to take the next gig and always being strapped for cash and stuff. And so like building up a rapport and relationship with people, like where I'm like, I would hope fun to work with. And so therefore it's like I do get called for a lot of things, and that's nice. So it does give me the opportunity to day play if I don't want to take a job full time and still, make ends meet.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to start to wrap up here properly, but I want to ask another question, which is that you've mostly gravitated toward doing more period pieces and all that, but is there a genre that you have not yet gotten to, even if you've done it a little bit before, but like maybe haven't gotten to properly spread your wings, I suppose, as a costumer? Is there any like type of film or genre that you would just love to be?
Sci-fi or fantasy.
Sci-fi or fantasy?
Hands down.
Nice.
Like I would like to do a horror piece, like a real horror, but like also a lot of horror is just like trash. So it's like I would want it to be like a really interesting story. Like there's something that kind of gets lost for me with horror especially when it's just like a slasher film. And it's like, all right, cool, it makes my job hard, but like am I fulfilled when I watch this? Am I going to be like, look, I'm so proud?
Yeah.
But sci-fi or fantasy would be pretty clutch.
All right.
Just like really like tailored costumes to a world, and like the costumes tell you everything about what you're watching. Like you don't have to know anything about the whole of the world, but you see the costume and you're like, oh yeah, that person probably works on a spaceship, or we're in space right now, or that person's probably a king, or it's like, or a jester or something. Like it's just like you see so many characters, like you see so much of the character in the costume before they even speak, which is the beauty of costume design.
And it can even just be for the actor who's portraying the character, the wardrobe can be the thing that helps them make that character come to life as well. Like, there's countless stories of that, like Sir Ian McKellen getting his Gandalf hat, and then everyone in the room was like, and that Gandalf
that was it. Now he's born. Gandalf.
Yep.
Yeah.
So wonderful.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, it's been really fun.
Awesome. I've learned a lot, and which is
I've shared a lot.
Well, it's secretly why we have this podcast is for me to just be able to talk about film with people. So,
fair.
But yeah, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Is there anything that you'd like to plug right now that you'd like people to check out, or any social media or anything like that?
No, just continue to watch films and support the writers in their strike and want for the ability to live their lives.
All right. And check out The Pale Blue Eye on Netflix. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you want to start your own podcast, why wait? Reach out to us at StudioME.me, and I hope you hear me again soon.